So this is a video to help you when you are sewing up, stuffing and adding the finishing touches to your curly kale. Now the one that I've got here is worked in a double knit on a 3mm hook, but I'm actually going to be finishing one here worked in our fine on a 2mm hook. So what you need to do first is stuff the main body. So put a little bit of stuffing into that and then take your base piece and leave yourself a long length of yarn when you finish that, because all you can then do is put your base onto the bottom of that piece once you've got the stuffing in, and then put your hook in through one stitch on the body, so that main stem, and one stitch on the base, and you've got the same number of stitches. So all you then need to do is double crochet all the way around that edge. Then sew in the ends on either side. So I'm just going to gather the stitches on the tip and sew that down, and then sew in the end that I've just completed the base with. Then next we're going to attach the leaves. So when you've made the two leaves, you've got one open side where you've done all that increasing around the edge, and you've got a closed side. You want them to both be open sides at the top. So position them like that, either side, and then you want to sew them onto either side of that central bit, leaving a gap in the middle. So the easiest way to do that is to leave yourself a long thread on each leaf, and then sew up the side. So next you need to sew your veins into position, and what you'll have made is you'll have made top, middle and bottom ones, and they are a different length. So all you need to do is position the longest two at the bottom like that. Then the medium ones next, and then the shortest ones at the top, and sew those into position. So next we need to add the arms and legs. So first put a little bit of stuffing just into the bottom, so into effectively the foot or the hand, so the bottom bulbous piece, like that. And especially if you are doing a fine make, like I am here, then you're definitely going to need that crochet hook handle to push that stuffing down to the end. So a little bit more in there. And obviously the limbs are entirely optional. So if you're making this as play food, maybe it's for a children's kitchen or a display, even a Harvest Festival display, then obviously your curly kale would be finished just like that. And there's no need to add the limbs or the eyes on. And I've made sure they're all separate, so you can always choose to leave them off if you want to. Now in the pattern for all the veg, whenever we're talking about legs and arms and sewing them on, there'll either be an instruction to sew them flat, or there'll be an instruction to sew them perpendicular. And what that means is if the instruction is to sew them flat, if you look at the shape of this foot here, you've got a bulbous piece at the front where you've got more of your shaping that goes in here. And when it says to sew them flat, it means they're going to be sewn onto your character flat like that, so the foot will be facing forward. If it says to sew them perpendicular, it will be that way round. So you'll find that your line is going in the direction down the front of the foot rather than flat against it. So on this instruction, you've got both, which is why it's quite a nice one for me to show you that. So with the feet, we're going to be sewing them flat like that, and then we're going to be sewing them on the front. With the arms, we're going to be sewing them perpendicular, so we'll be folding them the other way. Then once you've got one leg into position, you want to leave a gap of about 5 to 6 stitches in between the two legs. I think looks best. Obviously that is entirely up to you, but if you want a guide based on mine, about 5 to 6 stitches in between the two legs. So once you've sewn the legs into position flat, time to put the arms on perpendicular. So like I said with the legs, you've got the bulbous part at the front where you've done more shaping and the flat bit to the back. If it was to sew them flat like we did the legs, it would be that way, but we're doing these ones perpendicular. So you want to fold it the other way like that. Sew the top closed so that that stays in that position. That'll make it a little bit easier for you when you sew it on. And that means when it's that way round that it's much easier to position and sew on. So all you need to do is put it in place like that and then over sew it both sides like we did with the legs. There we go. And then the final thing to do is to snip off all your ends and then sew your eyes into position. And there is a separate video about sewing eyes in fine if you are like me working in our fine yarn.